Welcome to Conversations with E. I'm Esther, and this is the Mind Myself podcast. And if you're listening to this and you don't see the notes, Mind is spelled MYND. And it's a website filled with amazing information for you, including this podcast, including blogs, and so many other things. So we invite you to come and visit us whenever you can. The information is all free and it's there for you, and it's our gift to the world. Today, it is my pleasure to be welcoming our guest, David Allen Tracy. And he's going to be sharing a bit about his story and how he grew up in the jungles of Panama. So, David, this is a wonderful personal journey that you're sharing with us today. So, welcome, and please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your story.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm a multifaceted individual, very passionate about health and wellness. I'm a certified theta healing practitioner, certified herbalist, and functional genomics and nutrition coach, as well as a personal brand coach for holistic wellness practitioners and anyone involved in holistic modalities of healing. And my background was, as you mentioned, I did grow up in the jungles of Panama. So I was born in Wisconsin. But at age 5, my parents actually left Wisconsin in the United States, and we moved to Nova Scotia. And I lived in Nova Scotia for a while. And my dad was training there through Cambridge University campus there to be an English teacher in Mexico. And we went to Mexico after that. And then he trained some more in the States and Texas and Florida. And then we went to Panama for a little bit and then went back to Florida. And eventually we ended up, after living in Guatemala and Mexico for a while, moved to Panama. I lived there for over 25 years. And so, yeah, my parents ran a nonprofit there for indigenous children. And so we lived right on the jungle, and I regularly traveled into the jungle by canoe, sometimes by helicopter, sometimes by boat, depending on which one we were going to. There are over 7 tribes of indigenous peoples in Panama. And so I'm fully bilingual, and from a young age was involved in medical brigades, educational services, indigenous rights, arts festivals, speaking on stage, interpreting from English to Spanish or Spanish to English on stage, involved with government work. And I also did humanitarian work in over 40 countries by the time I was 30.
Wow,
so, yeah.
What an incredible background. And we're just going to scratch the surface of it today.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's fun. I love it. It really was formative for me. I mean, it wasn't even until 5 years ago that I lived in continental USA. I had grown up my whole life overseas. I lived in my wife and I and our daughters lived in Hawaii for a couple of years as well. But Hawaii doesn't really feel like continental USA in any shape or form.
No.
But so in many respects, the world and the international travel and global experiences have been kind of my way of life.
Mhm.
And now we live in Lakeland, Florida, where I have my businesses. So
Fantastic. Well, I can't even imagine the life that you've lived, but let's just paint a little bit of a picture. You mentioned a number of the places that you grew up, but let's focus on Panama today. What was a typical day in your life as a child in Panama? Paint us a picture around that.
So we lived in different regions of Panama. And when I first moved there, we lived way out in the interior of Panama. And keep in mind that the U.S. was stationed in Panama for almost 100 years. We had military. There was over 200,000 troops in Panama along the Panama Canal Zone, but we didn't live anywhere near the Panama Canal Zone. We lived several hours away. So the first place I lived was a small fishing village on the beach. This was not touristic at all. It was just fishermen and their families. And we lived right on the beach, and I'd play on the beach morning, day, and night practically with my brother and my sister. And so that was really cool. Progressively, we moved closer towards the city, and eventually we ended up in a community called Chilibre, which is in the rural parts of Panama City, but it borders the national park called Soberania. And in that park, there's a river, which is the Chagres River, which is the source of the Panama Canal. And deep up the rivers, and that river and other tributaries, we got the Pecani River, there are tribal groups called the Embera and the Waunan. The Embera and the Waunan are traditionally from the Darien Gap, which borders Colombia, which is humongous jungle border between Panama and South America. There is no road that connects Central America to South America because this jungle is so wild and dense. And many of these indigenous peoples had moved from the Darien Gap to the villages on these rivers and formed communities, in part for tourism and in part for access to education for their kids, or access to healthcare, or access to many things. Picture that a daily, so we would visit these villages almost weekly. We'd bring volunteer groups to provide, you name it. And many of the children, all the children there couldn't get an education past 5th or 6th grade. And even that education level in the villages was more equivalent to like a 3rd grade level. Most girls would end up pregnant by the time they were 12 or 13. And the cycle of poverty, the cycle of just no hope, really continued on for generations. So the parents didn't want that for their kids. So my parents formed a boarding school, but it wasn't a boarding school like you'd imagine, where you like sleep in dorms. They had kids living with families. And basically these families were volunteer families who were coming down to serve at the boarding school. They'd eat meals together. They created a family space. And the kids would learn English and also retain their tribal language as well as their tribal customs, but also get an education and graduate from high school and then get assistance to go into university. And many of these children was the first time that anyone in their family had ever, first of all, even graduated from high school in some instances, and in other instances, the first time they'd ever gone to university. And many of them went on to travel and do training overseas, or to work in nonprofit work overseas, or to have employment, and they'd still go home to their villages, in summers or weekends. And so a daily life for me, just kind of painting that picture, was really multifaceted. So we lived on a property where there were on any given day, between 50 and 120 people. Okay. And these were from indigenous people to international teams. Sometimes we'd have two or three teams at a time. We'd have students training. Think of it like Peace Corps kind of situation. And there'd be maybe 4 or 5 different courses going on at the same time. So we'd have people doing community development, we'd have people doing medical work, we'd have people doing education work, we'd have people doing linguistic stuff and cultural retention things. And so a lot of my life was spent in community. I was never alone. So we had people from all over, everywhere. Sometimes we on average have between 15 languages or spoken on the campus. And so we'd eat meals together sometimes, and like daily, and I would, because I'm bilingual, I would interpret for them when they did outings. I would interpret for them in classroom times. I would interpret one-on-one. And then I also did a lot of volunteering through the kitchen work. So I did a lot of cooking, a lot of gardening. So I learned how to cook a large amount of food for a large amount of people at a very young age, and including not only in the cafeteria style setting, but even in rural settings without running water and without electricity. I would cook for 100+ people over a wood fire, for example. And
Wow.
still can do that, So that's kind of paints a picture. It doesn't exactly
Yeah.
do it all justice, but very eclectic upbringing, very, very diverse,
Mm.
very multicultural. And it was amazing because truly my closest friends were from around the world, but also indigenous. And that was such a beautiful lesson for me to learn from a young age.
I can't even imagine the impact of all of that input, the jungle, the different languages, the people from all over the world, cultural retention that sounds like it was so important, and original language retention, what that did to shape you on so many different levels. And there are two questions I have. One, did you feel like you had a childhood in the way we understand childhood now, in certainly in North American settings anyways? And how did that shape you as an individual with your relationship with the earth and being?
Mm. Yeah, no, it's such a good question. I think that so one thing about where did I have a childhood? Maybe not in the sense of what normal childhoods would be. So I was homeschooled during a lot of, normal, yeah. I was homeschooled a lot, but I had a very rich childhood in the sense that there was never normalcy. I just want to say that there was never normalcy. It was every day was different. There was always new people to meet, new experiences to have, travels that, I traveled to Kenya when I was 11 years old with my grandparents, for example, and we were there for 3 weeks doing, all kinds of work and conferences and conventions and just getting to see so many people. We had people coming in from every walk of life you can imagine. Multimillionaires were coming down and sleeping in dorms to volunteer their time. And they were being led by indigenous people who only had up to a sixth grade education, but knew what they were doing in the jungle, right? So I think amongst many things I learned at that time, it was number one, to celebrate the individual, to celebrate people's stories, to celebrate who people are, and understand that there is literally no such thing as a cookie cutter approach to anyone. Everybody is valuable. Everybody is intrinsic in value. And to know that, a lot of times right now, the topic of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion is a big topic, right? For me, that was never even a question. It just was. It was a reality. Uh, to sit at a table and you have indigenous people and people from Africa and people from Asia and people from in all different age groups and all different social demographic backgrounds, and everybody's just eating together and enjoying there to serve one another and to serve communities and make a difference. And so that was really important for me progressively. It actually formed my path as a personal brand coach because my whole ethos is to help people to recognize their authenticity and to operate in authenticity, therefore operating in authority. And it also stemmed, of course, into the realm of theta healing that I do because people don't always know who they are and they're struggling with trauma and they've been through things. And so you want to help them untap those limited beliefs or identity issues that they carry. Now, your second part of that question was my connection to the earth. And I think that's a really interesting question because, I mean, we lived rural and rustic. And as an herbalist and as a chef, as well, because I went to culinary school, my connection to the earth would be very much understanding that pretty much everything that we have around us serves a purpose. There is no such thing as a weed, not in the sense of what most people consider to be weeds. Every plant has a purpose. And I think it's really only, they say that we've only really discovered the medicinal qualities of about 20% of plants in the whole world.
Right.
And that's crazy to think of. I mean, and the indigenous people, I was walking in the jungle and they're like, oh, that plant's for this, and this sap is for that, and this is for that, and this is for that. And you start going, oh my gosh, right? Like, is this does it even work? Number one, and it does. And number two, why does it work? And why is this not mainstream? Well, because people don't know, right? And big pharma controls so many things that we do and take. But so that built me some hunger for understanding and gaining knowledge. I kind of describe like, have you seen the Avatar movies with
Yes.
the blue aliens, and
Yes.
Pandora, I think is the name, or was that the name of the planet? I forget. But very that's how the Mbara villages feel. They live on huts along the river, high up on the cliffs with canopy rainforests that arch hundreds of these are massive trees, like hundreds of feet tall. Okay, so and you hear the howling monkeys in the distance, and there's waterfalls, and there's no electricity. and you don't hear any noise pollution. There's no motors, there's no lights. So at night, there's silence. And I was talking to my wife a couple months ago as we were sitting on our front porch and we're looking at the view. We have a nice view outside of our house, but you can hear the traffic in the distance. You can hear the playground, the kids playing over the distance. You can hear the garbage truck picking up garbage down the street. And I go, you know what I miss? And I had never realized that I missed. I said, I miss the silence of nature. I miss the silence of waking up in the morning and seeing the mist rise from the river and up the bluffs and the cliffs and through the trees and knowing that really on this planet we're just tiny little beings, you know, and
Yeah.
it really gives perspective. It gives perspective of how much things have changed and how far removed we are from what matters anymore.
I so agree with that. And mostly we just don't know because most of us, at least in the Western world, whatever that actually means,
Yeah.
have not experienced anything close to what you've experienced. And some of us are dipping our toes back in and don't even really know where to go or what to do. And here you come offering this rich array of information and experience uh, and a knowledge that there is wisdom in nature and there are solutions in nature and there are plants that that serve us. So were there any, we could talk about that for hours, and I know we have a short period of time today. Were there any specific elders or healers or traditions in your community that influenced you in your path toward healing?
Yeah. Very interesting question. And I think that there were many. Okay. So it wasn't only the indigenous, but just think about, I don't know how many people I've met in my life, but looking back on it, uh, if we were averaging, at least 150 new visitors per month, how many people I was meeting from around the world, and to know that not everyone, but most of them in some shape or form were pouring into me, right? And so I have had formative conversations. For example, and this wasn't a Panamanian person, but there was a Lakota Sioux um, Native American man who came down for a couple weeks to speak to the indigenous people. And it's all about identity. And it's all about tribal identity. And for a lot of the indigenous, this was really amazing to have someone from North America come down who's a Native American man and speak to them. And I was interpreting for him. And I remember very specifically saying to him, I hear what you're saying about belonging and identity and tribalism, but I said, I don't feel like I belong to anything. I'm born in the States, raised in Panama amongst indigenous tribes, traveled to over 40 countries. I don't necessarily feel like I'm Panamanian. I know I'm not indigenous, even though I feel like I kind of would like to be at the time. And yet at the same time, I don't really feel like I'm from the States. When I come to the States, it feels like a foreign country. And he said to me something I'll never forget, and it was very formative for me. He said, what your childhood was is a gift because it allows you to interconnect with people from all walks and backgrounds and to never have to choose the tribe. The
Yeah.
world is your tribe. And I'm like,
That's amazing
yeah.
because ultimately it's really true for all of us, but for you more so than probably most in this realm because of this incredible influx of influences and diversity. Like, wow,
Mhm.
so amazing. And how did that shape you?
Well, for one, it shaped a lot of decisions I made over the years. So when I started my marketing agency back in the day, it was called Northgate Marketing. I hired people from all around the world to be part of the team. We had people from Taiwan, from China, from Latin America, from Europe, North America, and men, women, all different ages. And it wasn't even that I was intentionally going, I need to have someone from each ethnicity or whatever, but we could speak 9 languages. We could speak 9 languages in our agency. And we had clients in over 4 continents and 30 US states, including Canada. And so it just was kind of by osmosis. I hired people who were my friends or who I was connected with.
Mhm.
And And so I got asked to be on the American Marketing Association of Iowa, which is where I was living at the time, as the VP for diversity, equity, and inclusion, because I had a diverse team. And I'm like, I didn't try to do that. That's just kind of what happened, right? And I've been consistently that way. And so I told them, my statement to them was, it is about valuing all people. People matter. People matter. And if we look at society as a whole, more and more, we're basically society, and I'm speaking very loosely about society. I can maybe say the system, it's the unspoken system or the system around us, tries to dehumanize people. And I think we have to be very mindful of that because, yes, I love technology. Don't get me wrong. We were just talking about AI technology before this podcast.
Oh.
Such a revolutionary service for us. But at the same time, we have to be mindful of the value of the individual, that people matter, and yes, I can be more efficient right now. Yes, I can go faster, but and I spend a lot of time on my computer and on my devices. I don't want to. Frankly, if I could just throw my phone and my laptop into the lake right now, I would, and then never look back. I'd be much happier. But we live in a world where we have to be working and we have to do the hustle and bustle because we have to make money and pay our bills and insurance and retirement and all the things, right? So there's a system around us. It's really easy, especially after COVID and the pandemic, that we would essentially start looking at people as being a problem, and I need to isolate and I need to self-protect. And I think it's really important for us to start reconnecting with one another and understanding that when you are in a relationship with people, it's a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, you're going to receive love and give love. And on the other hand, people are in pain. A lot of people are in pain. And we've been in pain. And you've been in pain at different points of your life. And hurt people can hurt people. But it's worth it to press through. It's worth it to be in relationship with people. Because then outside of, it's about relationship. And for me, it's about relationship upward, outward, and inward. I want to be in a relationship with myself. I want to be in a relationship with others, and I want to be in a relationship with God, and that's kind of the way I function. And it's like very three-way. And if I'm missing any of those components, then what's the point of living? Ask yourself that, for those listening. Why are you living and just doing the rat race and doing the things? And so often we think we're actually in relationship with people, but reality, it's at superficial levels. And if we take the time and go, how are you really doing right now? How are you doing today? How often people go, oh, they open up their heart and they tell you things that really matter at the end of the day.
It is all about connection. It totally is. And to be more conscious in our connections. And I have a very small group, and that's the name of it, Conscious Connections. But it truly is how do we share and be authentic and heart to heart? And so as I listen to your incredibly fascinating story, and I'm sure there's so much more to it, but when did you know that this unusual upbringing was a gift? And at what point did you appreciate the power of that gift?
It's interesting because we've been asked that. My siblings and I have been asked that several times. And I think we always knew it was a gift from a very beginning stage. I don't think we understood to the degree we know now. I'm raising my daughters here in the States in a very different reality than my reality, right? What it was. I wouldn't say that one's better than the other, and I want to be very clear about that. Yeah, I had a very cool, unique, different upbringing, but everybody's upbringing is their upbringing. My children love their upbringing. They love their environment. They love that, it comes down to what they know and how they feel safe and that they're taken care of and that they have room to play and to dream and, you know, uh, structures in place that create stability. And so I believe everybody's upbringing and can be special. Now, many people go through many horrible things, and certainly my childhood was not devoid of pain. And we'll dive into some of that I'm sure, in future episodes with my journey with cancer and sexual abuse I went through, and many negative things too. So I'm painting a picture of very positive things right now. But there's a reason I became a theta healing practitioner, and that's because of trauma I went through. So to understand my upbringing as being a gift is to understand that to live is a gift in general. And that correlates directly from one of the biggest experiences of my childhood was being confronted with cancer at age 14 and understanding that I could literally die at any point. And to then go, let me savor life.
Mm.
Let me suck the marrow out of life. Let me experience the zest of life, the spice of life, and
Mhm.
to render from life all that I can, not just on an experiential kind of humanistic, self-centered way. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about living life to the fullest. What does that look like? Most often, that is aligning with values and mission and being mission true and knowing that your life is making a difference for future generations. So one of the things that made me understand that my childhood was unique and special was that that was ingrained in me at a young age, that even as a 7-year-old, I was making a difference in grown-ups' lives. As a 7-year-old, I was part of something that was changing communities. And that we all have a choice of how we spend our time and our days. And we still go on vacation, we still rest, but then it might not be, maybe it's not your career. Maybe you're like, well, my career is just, I'm an insurance broker or agent, or I'm a realtor. That's not making a difference. It is, depending on how you're going about it. So every interaction you have with whomever it is, from the waitress at the restaurant to the person who opens the door for you when you walk into a hotel to whomever it is, the Uber driver, is an opportunity for you to make a difference. And that should start at home. It should start with self and at home with your family, but it needs to go out into community. The biggest gift I realized I had was that life, despite the pain, despite the suffering, is worth living if we choose to make it worth living. So that was really important for me,
Mm.
and valuing individuals and valuing my time.
Is there a particular story or instance that you keep returning to that grounds you in that deep richness and that value of living life to its fullest?
So I'm trying to recall. Yes, there is one that consistently does that. And then when I had cancer, okay. So and we'll dive more into that in upcoming episode, but there's a little boy named Oliver who had a brain tumor and was blind and would sit on my lap receiving treatment. And I have a whole belief about chemo, which we'll get into another episode. Don't like it, but that was the reality of what I was doing at the time. So I was very sick myself, very sick. And this little boy was so sweet. He's maybe 8 years old, sit in my lap. He was blind. He touched my face and try to feel how I looked like, right? And the next week, he's gone. He had died. And that hit me hard because, for one, that little boy could have been me. I could have been the kid that had the brain tumor that died. Number two, did that boy have to die? The treatment he went through, was it the best route to go? No, it really wasn't. I'll just say that point blank, it was not the route to go. Okay. And thirdly, seeing him loving everybody he was with, he was loving. Here, this kid is blind, he has a brain tumor, he's going through chemo, he's sick, and he was one of the most loving, kind kids ever. And then he's gone. And that really resonates with me, has continued to resonate with me, because the value of every minute, the value of every hour, the value of every day. I say this often, but if we live to be 95, we live like 34,750 or something like that days. That's all. That's it. That's not that many days. So we really don't live that long. And so really every day matters. And I talk to a lot of people and they go, well, I'll get to that eventually. Or I really always wanted to travel to Europe, but I just don't think I'm going to do that. Or I've always thought about going on a trip overseas and volunteering, but I don't think I can do that. Um, or I've always wanted to get into martial arts, but I'm too old. Or whatever the statement is, think about who you are. It's never too late to do things, and you can find every excuse in the world. And the thing is that if you, we have a choice. I don't care how hard life is and how many things we've been through. And some of the most capable people in the world who have done some of the most extraordinary things had disabilities or handicaps or were on the spectrum or look at people in sports who don't even have limbs and they're accomplishing things. So our limitations are opportunities to overcome. And really, it's I think we become so passive and we've become so kind of complacent in Western society. A lot of that's because of entertainment and media and news and politics and our devices and the type of food we eat that makes us not have energy and affects our hormones and the water we drink. And there's many things we can get into about that. But reality is we were meant to live life energetically, making a difference, passing on to next generations, having a relationship, being outdoors, being in nature, knowing our purpose and living it. We were not meant to just spend our days going like this.
And for those of you not watching, he looked at his phone.
Yeah. And I will sadly have to say that I spend a lot of my day doing this because I have to for my business. And it's this catch 22. So I'm constantly at odds with it.
Oh.
But the goal is I have to literally get outdoors and not be on it, you know? So I'm kind of going many routes, but the main thing is just savor life. Savor life and take every opportunity you can.
That's so phenomenal, David. And as we wrap up this conversation, one of many, uh, how do you integrate? You've just been saying it, but any last words on how you integrate all that incredible journey that you've been on? How do you integrate that into your daily life today, whether it's healing work, creative work, chefing, which is creative, the the marketing that you do, et cetera? How do you integrate all of that into who you are today?
Yeah, I think it's just all part of it. So, I mean, it plays a part in many ways. I mean, when I make food, it's like one day we're eating Indian, then we're doing Thai, and then we're doing, Egyptian and Korean, and it's just always different. Panamanian food. My the type of music I listen to with my kids is very culturally diverse. When we travel, we try to experience different cultures and languages. The people I'm in relationship with and friendships are very multicultural as well. And that's all just by osmosis. That's just kind of me being me. The way I dress is very eclectic, and I'm often wearing tribal beads and things, and just kind of just who I am. It's part of who I am. I think that what I can just tell people kind of to sum that up is it's really about if the more you can understand that I strive to be my own person. I don't want to follow the trends of what the system tells me to do. And I think so many people do that, especially with social media. It's kind of like just to do this and do that, and everybody kind of follows. And by the end of it, we're all kind of sounding the same and saying the same things and dressing the same way. Uh, the more you can understand the author, so who you are, you can write your own story and operate in authenticity, which is the same root word, author and authenticity. And the more you operate in authenticity, the more you have authority, which means you can choose your own path, your own decisions, your own life, what you want to do with it. And so it's taking ownership of it. So how I integrate it is just being authentic. And that's how I make decisions. I go, this is not for me, that's for me. I like this company or I don't like that. I even turn down clients if they're not a good fit for me because they don't align with my values or what I'm for. For me right now, because I'm so rooted in wanting to help people with health and wellness, if someone's got a business that is causing people harm physically through the food they're serving or through the pharmaceuticals that they might be administering or whatever it is, I'm not going to help them. It's nothing against them as people. I just am not going to contribute. And so I know my path. And so really knowing myself and knowing my own journey, and it's helped me establish values. And then to operate in authenticity, I understand my boundaries as well.
Fantastic. Now, David, I know in the show notes, there are going to be ways that people can reach you. If you could just say that out loud here so that we can, if somebody's just listening, they could find you. Where would they find you?
So the easiest way to find me would be on social media, David Allen Tracy. So Tracy, David Allen Tracy. And my website is davidallentracy.com. I have other websites like Eden's Echo, and I won't, those will all be in the link. But if you want to find me, just look up David Allen Tracy, and all my sites and all my socials have all my links to everything else I do, including my upcoming podcast as well. So
Thank you so much, David, for being here and for sharing just the tip of the iceberg on this incredible journey that you are living. And we're so blessed to be in relationship with you. And so thank you again for being here today.
my pleasure. Thank you so much, Esther. I love it.
Yeah, you're welcome. And to all of you listening, to all of you watching, as David has said, but this is the watchword, the watch phrase for Mind Myself, we do this because you matter. Thank you for being here.